Hi everyone, this is another development log for my game Arcane Fortune. So today I'd like to talk to you about updates I've made to the zoning and the economic system and additional changes that I had to make to improve the performance of the code, because when I started expanding on the economic system, some of the inefficiencies in my pathfinding implementation of A-star were not very scalable. So let's start out by loading the game. And so here we are, the normal type of setup. So the units are the letters on the screen, and the different colors are different players. So there's, I think, another update since last week is I alternate the color shown on the screen if there's more than one unit being in the plot at a time. So let's start out with building some zones and see what happens. So I'll start with this worker and start building a residential zone. So I'll press R to begin zoning, as you might have seen last week. So I'll start with this, and I'll build all four of the zones: a residential, as I just built, business zone, industrial, so that would be T, and then the last will be the agricultural zone, so that will be U that I press. So one additional thing since last week, I believe what I showed was just a residential zone with all of the buildings of the same size. So this week I added that they are of different sizes. And right now they're being added based on the tax rate that this zone is getting taxed at. And this is computed based on the tax rate at the closest city hall. And right now, there is no city hall, so they're not being taxed. As you can see here, it says no route, build roads to city hall. So there's a 0% tax rate, basically. Let's see. There's other statistics that you can see for the buildings. So right now, this business, this bakery, is employing 2 out of 6 possible spots for employees. And while I haven't implemented this so far, basically each business will be able to sell products or consume products from, for instance, industrial zones. So right now this isn't implemented, but the employment is. So right now we have a total population of 12, and each of these residential buildings, the employees are actually finding a path from their house to the business, and if it's possible, they will choose the closest such business or industrial zone that they can work, or agricultural zone. And in the future, I'll have things like traffic, congestion of the roadways, and so on, that will make it more or less likely for someone to move in or stay in the city. But right now I've just added the basics of just finding any possible employment that's around. And right now the probability of someone moving in is based also on the number of jobs, and a number of these factors that you see listed down below here. So at each location on the map, each zoned location, whoops, I zoomed out, so let me zoom back in, center the map again. Each location on the map, there is a number of statistics similar to SimCity for the desirability of each of these types of zones. So the desirability is going to be a weighted sum of of these factors, such as the development of surrounding residential areas, or the number of products being sold by the neighboring areas. So like if there's tons of products being sold, you know, for a consumer that might be appealing if you want to move in there because the prices would presumably be low. But conversely, if you're a business, it's not so appealing to have tons of products in the market, so it'll actually make businesses less likely to start a new business there. Right now, this is not really considered in the placement of buildings, but I basically added the values that I'll use for calculating the probabilities in the future. So these numbers right here are just as a way of a placeholder for what I'll add in the future. The other thing you can see here is computing each of these values, because it involves computing paths between many of these buildings, is computationally intensive if done too frequently. So I have a way of caching the values so that I only recompute the paths when I think it's necessary, in a sense. So you can see here when the game thought that it was necessary to recompute these values, and it's in part based on when was one of the zones last updated with new buildings. Last thing I want to show you is just connecting these areas to a city hall, and I'll show you how that works. So with a worker, I'm going to build a city hall. And, you know, yet still, if you look here, they're not connected to the city hall. These workers, these residents rather of the city, can only traverse in zoned areas or on roads. So we have to build a road from the city hall or from the location of the business to that area. So if I make this really kind of snake-like path, you'll see they have to follow the road. They can't just, you know, go in the grass or the forest to get there. So they're going to have to walk all the way around. And you'll see in the path, the distance rather, that it shows that they've traversed. Each of these little grids is like one unit on the map distance. So here it's saying that it thought it needed to go 116 to go all the way around. And, you know, conversely over here, it had to go farther because it's, you know, traversing over there. Anyway, so that's, oh yeah, one additional thing that might be added since last week is if I increase the tax rate, all the residents are going to move out. So, yep, see, they're all disappearing. And then conversely, if you bring it back down, they'll all come back again. So this is really the only thing as of right now that's influencing whether or not a building stays, tax rate for that area. So, oh yeah, so the last thing I did was the performance of the A-star pathfinding. So A-star is just an algorithm that's commonly used and is pretty good for finding a path between 2 points on a map. So this is the algorithm being used right now to draw this line that you're seeing. And the algorithm basically works by searching the possibilities of where you are now and where you could go basically to reach the end, and it tries to find the minimum such distance. And as it's in the middle of computing where you are, like if it's over here, it's found a path from here to here, it has to search over all the things and kind of adding new possibilities over the things it's tried before. So if it has to sort through every single value each time, it takes longer than if it has a quick way to access and sort through the prior I guess, computations than it's done. So what I did was I realized I had to, instead of search through all of them each time, I had to basically use what they call a binary search, and keep the list sorted so that I could quickly sort through things and compute the paths, since I'm now having to compute a lot of them, as I mentioned before, between these buildings. So anyways, that was a necessary step, and why things took a little bit longer than I would have hoped, but I'm satisfied with how it's going now. So anyways, in future development logs, I think I'll add, just the last few things for now on getting the buildings to respect the demand for each of these areas, based on a weighting of them, and try to iron out the economy a little more. And then after that, I'll start with some simple combat between different areas, and then work on the AI and so on. Hopefully just make the game basically, functional in a bare bones state, and I'll keep adding complexity as I go forward. So anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you, or you have any thoughts, feedback, or suggestions or questions, just let me know. Anyways, see you next time. Thanks.